Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine.
Good. Um, just one second. Okay. Okay. Let's see. What did you? That's weird. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So I am wanting to see the video. I haven't received the video link.
I just emailed it because it just processed through.
Okay. Hmm, did you send it? Oh, okay. Here it is. Okay. So it took all weekend since the last time we met for that to be processed.
No. I was trying to I was gonna upload it, but like I was trying to like see if it was like a storage problem, but I was trying to like clear out the storage and everything so it can be like processed.
Okay. So
Yes.
okay, the video that you sent. This is from the time that I was in the class, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the lesson reflection that you said, this is from the same lesson, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So I have a few questions. I'm sorry. Let me put you back on screen. Here we go. Okay. So I see where you've made revisions to your original document, and we're just going to walk through a few of these. I just received it, so I haven't had a time to do a deep dive, but there are a couple of things that just catch my attention right off the bat. Okay, so let's look at do you have it in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Let's look at um question one. And I'm just going to walk you through this. Hopefully, um you can use this as a reference, particularly for next semester, as we will have to do this 4 times. So this is an opportunity for you to not only receive the feedback, but also become more familiar with the process of the pop cycle, the pre-conference, the actual evaluation, and then also the post-conference, and writing your reflections and your self-scores. Okay, so number one asks you to describe and justify two things: your instructional strategy and your planned supports, right?
Mm.
Okay, so just talk, don't read your answer, just talk to me about what is your instructional strategy or strategies that you incorporated into this lesson.
The instructional strategies that I incorporated in the lesson was mostly about it was just it was like I was using a gradual release,
Okay.
and it was going to be about going over the topic as a class and then being able for them to implement it on their own so I can see like how the level of understanding they have. So then I could be able to see, okay, which a number of the students that are able to like master this level as we close out the unit, and the students that was not able to.
Okay. All right. Now talk to me about your planned supports. What planned support or supports did you have for this particular lesson that was going to be addressed either to the whole class, an individual student, or a group of students?
With plan supports, I thought it was like instructional plans
Uh, uh, no, no. Well, before I say no, talk to me, elaborate just a bit so I can make
because it was
clarify. I just want you to clarify.
because it was like instructional strategies and plan support. So like for plan supports, is it like how you planned your lesson to able to support the student?
Somewhat is okay. So you planning your lesson, and for what you have identified, your instructional strategy was gradual release, right? So that's a modeling process. I do, we do, you do, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So within that process of gradual release, what did you plan to support those students, either the whole class or a particular student or a group of students who may be struggling?
Oh, okay.
So what supports did you put in place?
It was the supports I put in place for like the lesson, it
Uh-huh.
was mostly for the students to be able to identify the kind of like keywords so they can build their inequalities and try to like hone in on like that kind of aspect of it.
Okay.
So like they'll be easy it'll be easier for them to be like well to write out the inequalities and be able to like take keywords and make them and also okay and to like being able to know if the inequality can provide like true statements.
Okay.
Meaning like if they was given a scenario about like if you were given this much money, then you'll be able will you be able to like meet the goal in like context of like the problem.
Word problem. Okay. So you're saying that, just to restate what you shared. So you're saying in order to help them master the concept of graphing and writing linear inequalities, one key aspect of that is to identify keywords that's in the problem,
Yes.
word problem, okay, in a real
Mhm.
world context.
Yes, ma'am.
So given that, and you talked about identifying keywords, that's a major skill they need to learn, right? In order to set the word problem, well, in order to interpret the word problem, and then set up a mathematical statement or inequality in this case to solve. So, what support did you have in place? Like, for example, you've identified they need to know the keywords, right? So,
Mhm.
what did you do, or what did you have planned that's going to help them to identify the keywords? For example, did you highlight keywords within the word problem? Did you write them on the board? Did you box them? Did you have an anchor chart with keywords there that they can refer to know when they see the word less than, it means this mathematically? So, what plan supports did you have in place to help them meet that learning target?
It wasn't like a specified like plan support. It was mostly just like in my teaching. I was like trying to highlight as I go on with like the class that um this is a keyword for greater than, less than, or equal to. And I was trying to model my thinking so like they could be able to like highlight like those keywords and I ask questions if they understand. So it wasn't like a specific plan support. It was just more of like a highlight and ask questions.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Going forward, this is an aspect that you need to really consider. Okay.
Mhm.
You have your instruction planned.
Yes, ma'am.
In your instruction, there are certain components that need to be present. One is this is the learning target. This is the learning objective. And this is how I anticipate teaching it or presenting the content to students. For
Mhm.
students who may struggle with vocabulary, I'm going to add this support. For those students who are in who have an IEP, for example, that may have attention deficit or have visual impairment, I'm going to support them this way. So this is what that question is getting at. What are your planned supports?
Yes, ma'am. Hold on real quick. I'm trying to take out. I like in the plan supports, I was mostly focusing on like the miss concept of it rather than digging deeper on it. But next time I'll try to like dig deep on like focusing on what they, of course, what they miss, but in like specify areas that they keep missing on
Right.
so I can help them in the lesson.
You brought up a key point. So this is doing a flex class where you have identified students who did not perform well, I believe, on a unit test.
Yes,
Or
ma'am.
so based on the data from the unit test, you should know, because you analyzed the data, that a majority of the students missed this particular concept. Let's just say it was identifying keywords in the scenario. So based on the data, you're going to plan a lesson to address keywords. So then you go a step further and say, I'm going to provide this additional support. It could be a word bank. It could be, like I said, an anchor chart. You're going to think beyond just reteaching or going over the concept again. You're going to say, because students did this and the data confirms, I'm going to insert this plan support for either a group of students, one student, or the whole class or the whole group that's there, because you're not teaching the whole class in a sense. Okay, does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And if you see me like
Oh, that's fine.
typing,
Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm taking notes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No problem. I'm glad to see you do that. So number two talks about assessments. So it's how the design of your assessment, your planned assessment, and if you had to adapt it for students with specific needs. Okay, so for this lesson that I saw, what was the assessment?
Um, the assessment was just it wasn't supplement supplemented. It's the supplemental one. It's hard to pronounce it, but it was mostly like a formal assessment based off like notes and like the activity, which would have like shown their work. And like I would have taken it as like monitoring like level of growth because it was like mostly like observational rather than like me grading. It was just to see if they progressed from where they were before to like now after the lesson.
Okay, so your response says, I plan a booklet on the topics so I can monitor their level of understanding, and it was an
Mhm.
outlet for the students to get extra practice on the material. So from what I recall, I didn't see a booklet in the lesson.
Yeah, I it was like intentionally it was supposed to do that, but since like we had taken too much time on the notes section, we wasn't able to get to the booklet so I can do the gradual release. We only made it through like just me teaching it rather than the whole lesson.
Okay, so let me ask you this question: why did you include it if it didn't happen?
Um, I didn't. I didn't know that I couldn't do that. I just thought that I can put in like what I had planned, but I didn't really get the chance to execute it.
Okay, so you're reflecting on what actually took place, and if you want to include what you had planned, but because of pacing or what have you, you didn't get to, that's fine. But you definitely want to talk about what actually occurred during the lesson. Okay, so just keep that in mind, right? Okay, for number three, you said the question is how did your instruction, excuse me, link student experiences, culture, and prior learning with what you taught. Okay, so the prior learning is obvious because this is a review of what they missed. Okay, so that's fine. But and you explicitly state, I did not link the instruction to students' experiences or culture. So let me ask you this. As you design this flex lesson for those students in a real world context, right? So you
Mm,
presented a problem to them.
yes, ma'am.
Could you not have created that problem or structured that problem to relate to students' interest? Or do you have the ability to do that? Or is the curriculum prescribed? Uh-oh. Hello? Oh, Janique? Okay, Janique?
Oh, no. It was-
Uh-oh. Okay, you're okay.
Okay, I'm back now.
Yeah, it was breaking up there for a bit. Okay, so did you hear my question?
Um, Not really. Can you repeat it again?
So I asked that as you are creating this lesson or planning the lesson, and do you have the ability to write or create the questions yourself, or is it prescribed? Like, do you take it from a curriculum and your mentor teacher says you have to present it this way, you can't change it or modify it in any way?
Um, I could have changed it. I was thinking about it like after the lesson. When I was like seeing like could it like connect to like students experiences, and I was like realizing, oh, I could have changed the questions to make it more to the students experiences, because it is a real life world problem, and I could have like changed it up a little bit.
Okay, so you do have the capability of doing that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to encourage you to do that going forward. Okay. And that way it makes it relevant for the students. It's a way to engage students and it's an entry point into learning because students, when they feel connected to the content or the curriculum, they tend, research says, to perform better. Okay. So keep that in mind. Number four says explain how you elicited student thinking beyond the literal level. So that means Bloom's taxonomy level one, which is basic recall. How did you extend students' learning or thinking beyond that point? Okay. And you explicitly state, I did not plan any higher order thinking since this lesson was mostly reviewed. Okay. And I'm going to challenge you here because let me ask you this. What is the purpose of higher order thinking questions, you think? Give me your take on that.
How are thinking questions will lead the students to be able to think on their own and be able to justify the reasoning.
Justify the okay. So give me an example of the verbs, like the behavior that goes into higher order thinking. You understand my question?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
So like if I was putting up a problem and it was about like arithmetic sequences,
Mhm.
and it was just like a sequence and the students would have to build their own expression, so they arithmetic sequence so they can like match up the pattern of like what's being shown. And it's a very open ending, it's not open ended, it's very like broad question, and is up to the students to build on that interpretation and come to their own like conclusion, and they'll be able to justify their reasoning. And with that kind of like discord, the teacher will be able to step back and be able to just moderate the students and like have them think on their own rather than the teacher taking over the forefront and just teaching.
Okay. Okay. Very, very good. So what you just said, would that not be applied to a flex class?
Yes, but I did kind of like I just okay, so I made an assumption that like they need like extra help. So I didn't know if like they could be able to like handle that on their own. So I just try to like teach them and like try to well basically reteach so they could be able to like understand it fully.
Okay.
But having a higher thinking approach would have been better. I just have to like plan it the right way.
Okay. I don't know if it's necessarily would have been better to use your language, but for giving you an opportunity. Okay, because I want to make sure that this is clear. From my understanding, flex means these students did not do well on a particular assignment for the 30 minutes. That's basically give them another level of concentrated support in mastering the learning objective or the learning target. So when you are reteaching, then the assumption is that my original plan, the way I had it designed, not meet the mark because students are still demonstrating uh, learning gaps. So what I may have to do, possibly what I need to do, is change my approach. So, for example, if I was on at the board originally and just presented the information, and I'm showing everything algebraically, perhaps in the flex class, I would change my approach into this time I'm going to present it first graphically and see if students can, if that would be a good entry point for students to understand. So you notice I'm still teaching the same content, but my approach or my method is different. First, I did everything algebraically. So now let me try it graphically. That would be a better. So reteach doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to just reteach. I have to be intentional about analyzing what I did first, looking at the student data, and then how can I adjust to meet specific students' needs? Okay. Now, um, you said that you made an assumption that the higher order thinking would not rank well with students, right?
Mhm.
So at this point, you should not make the assumption because you have the data there to tell you yes or no. So when you analyze student work, what did it tell you? Did it tell you that by no means can students engage in higher order thinking? Or did it tell you that maybe one or two of the students can engage in higher order thinking? So what does the data tell you? so that you don't make the wrong assumption. Okay, so you have to be clear. You have to be clear on that. Analyze the data. Okay. Okay, so for number six, I'm going to skip over number five because you're quite clear on the academic language because that was one of your key points, making sure they understand the key words. So I'm going to skip down to number six. It says, what portion of the lesson, as you reflect, needed more attention? Okay. So you said what needed more attention, ironically, was questioning and building on the question. So talk to me about what you mean by that.
So I like noticed that like every time when I present the question to the students, or now present like the problem to the students, I tend to go into the question rather than a trick that I learned from Miss Jackson is to model my thinking so I can give them the buildup of like how I would approach this and then pass the baton to the students and ask questions on how they will approach it.
Okay. Okay, I see what
And
you
that seemed to respond better in that lesson more because students was able to like understand it more. Cause every time I do this on my personal time, but every time that I teach a lesson, I
mean.
normally would ask the kids after, be like, how did you like understand it? Was there like misconceptions and everything? And like one of like the students, can I say their name? Do I have to give it
Oh
a
no,
alias?
yeah, go ahead. It's just this is just between the two of us. I'm not sharing.
Okay, so like I was talking to Chrissy about it and she was like, "Oh yeah, I really understood the lesson. I really understood it." And like she just didn't really raise her hand a lot, but she said that she really understood it. So I was like, "Okay, maybe the approach of modeling my thinking before letting the students tell me their thinking would help them or guide them to like where they need to go."
Okay, gotcha. All right, so and I totally agree with that, but let me tell you the underpinning of that, which means the in order for you to model your thinking so that then students can then take it, apply it to their learning and thinking and move on to mastery, is that you have to be confident and assured in what in what you're modeling. Okay. So remember, it goes back to making sure you conceptually understand the content, not just procedures, but the concept and build that concept as you model so that students can then do the same. And that goes to even the language that you use, right? So remember, we talked about this, I think, last time. The academic language, the terminology is key. And so if they see and hear you model it, then they should replicate that. So for example, we shouldn't see or hear students say, and we certainly should not hear or see you say, as we refer to x squared, we shouldn't hear x2,
Mhm.
right? Those kinds of things, right? So you're going to have to be confident and knowledgeable in order to model that effectively for students, right? So I totally agree with you. I like that approach. Modeling your thinking could be very beneficial for students. Okay, so when we go on to number seven, it says, if you could teach this lesson to the same group of students again, so this is the flex class, what two or three things would you change differently to improve the learning of your students? So before I talk about your response, based on the lesson, the flex class, what data did you retrieve from that lesson? Did students master the second time around? Did they do better? Are they still struggling? What did the data say?
Since they couldn't really do it on their own, I didn't have like specific data or data for them. I should have implemented the data inside of the notes so I could be able to record if they actually mastered or actually like understand the material.
Okay.
But that was part on my end. Yes, like I tried to like do that with the activity, but we wasn't able to reach the activity. So all they had was just notes and not really any kind of like evidence of mastery.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's no evidence of mastery. So what does that tell you? And how are you going to take that bit of information and apply it going further?
That I would have to like have a kind of like space for students to be able to practice it on their own. So like in the Thursday flex class, I was trying to do that so they'd be able to work on their own. And like after we after I show them the step and the second one on the B, they would be able to learn on their own. But I didn't do that because I just let the students come to the board and try to solve it rather than walk around because I was worried about pacing. But
Okay.
then again, you and Miss Jackson was telling me like, well, it's not really about pacing. It's about if the students understand the material. So I would say I would try to have questions on the notes and have a walk around instead of them coming to the board.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read what you wrote. The first thing you identified, you've already spoken to, but the second says this: let the student let the student come up to the board and demonstrate their thinking and reasoning from the students, and let them have a discord throughout the problem so they can learn from each other instead of me reteaching the whole entire lesson. In this way, students will be more engaged in discussion of the class to get the correct answer than me teach and not fully learn what's being said. Okay. Sorry. Oh, let me turn this off. I thought I did. Okay. So are you looking at that? Uh-oh, you frozen again? Okay, Janique. Uh-oh. Janique? Janique?
Can you hear me?
Well, it's breaking up a bit. You're frozen, and then I can.
Phone.
Okay, let's try it. Let's try this. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I think it's just a bad connection on the other device you were using.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because this is better. Okay. Good. All right. Do I need to restate that?
Yeah, question 7.
Yes. Question 7. So I'm reading your second bullet point here. It says, let the student come up to the board and demonstrate their thinking and reasoning from students, and let them have a discord throughout the problem so they can learn from each other instead of me reteaching this whole entire lesson. And this way, the students would be more engaged in discussion of the class to get the correct answer than me then okay, to get the correct answer than me teach and not fully learn what's being said. Okay. Okay. So what do you mean? I want you to restate that in your own words, other than what you have written here. So just restate that.
So it was mostly about like how that I could have had the students come up to the board more frequently
Okay.
and like so they can showcase how they approached
Okay.
the question and make it like a classroom discussion
Okay.
rather than me teaching, and they can like learn from each other, and I could just be a guide or a middleman so they could be able to draw from each other's like conclusions.
Okay. Okay. So Janique, I'm about to say something that may come across that may be hard for you to hear and digest. Okay. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought you froze. Okay. So one thing we talked about confidence, right? We talked about you being assured of yourself, assured of the content and the concepts in order to deliver that before students.
Mm-hmm.
A step what you really have to work on, Janique, is your verbal and written presentation. Okay. We have to work on the grammar, the language use, and I believe where it's coming from, the disconnect is a lack of confidence in yourself. The reason I asked for you to restate what you meant here is because I want to hear it in your own words. So, Janique, you possess an understanding of what should occur, what should have occurred. It's just you translating that does not come across clearly. You articulating that does not come across clearly. Okay. So this is an area that we have to work on because teaching is 100% about communication, both written and oral communication. Okay. And I'm going to suggest, I don't, let me put this in the chat. Let me know if you have heard of this particular app.
Grammarly, yeah.
And they have free accounts. They also have accounts for at a discounted rate for college students. Have you used this app before?
No, ma'am.
I'm going to strongly encourage you to download the app. What this would do is once you have put your thoughts onto paper, excuse me, I got something in my eye. Once you have put your thoughts onto paper, you send it through Grammarly. They will edit it for you to make sure that it's clear and concise. Okay. And it works wonders, not only for your written presentation, but also you can get a sense of how to improve your writing and how you articulate your thoughts as well. I've had to do it. I as a doctoral student, I use Grammarly all the time because I want to make sure I know what I'm trying to say, but I have to not only get it out onto paper, but make sure the audience can take away what the meaning that I'm trying to convey. And so sometimes there's misalignment in translating my thoughts. So I use this device or this application to assist me at times. And then what has happened is because I've used it so much and it has given me great feedback, I know how to then write a certain way for a certain audience. Okay. So I want you to really consider what I'm saying because you have to be able to articulate your thoughts effectively. Okay. And this is, again, not to be harsh or embarrass you. I just know that this is what it's going to take. For example, when you say let them have a discord, what you mean is let them have discourse.
Mm.
Yeah. So the wording, the terminology, right, is going to be clear. And what you also meant, throughout the process, I learned from each other instead of me teaching the entire. Okay. So let the student come up to the board and demonstrate their thinking and reasoning from the students. Okay, so that's unclear. Let the student come up to the board and demonstrate their thinking and reasoning from the students. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to. Well, I think what you're saying is you're going to select a student to come up to the board, work out the problem, explain their thinking and their reasoning as they problem solve, and thereby the other students in the class will be able to hear and see what this student is doing, and it can be an discussion based lesson, or it can be an exploratory lesson where they learn from each other.
Yeah.
Then what you do is just facilitate the learning. Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
And so notice the language that I used. That's the type of language that you want to make sure that you incorporate so that your meaning is clear. Okay. And it takes practice. It takes practice. It's not something that you can learn and a skill that you can hone overnight. It takes practice. But it also takes someone bringing this to your attention to give you the choice on how you're going to respond to it. Okay. I tell you that just from prior experience, when you go into a classroom or where you go into an interview, the principal or the interviewing panel, they look at all things. They're not just looking at, can this person teach math? Do they have the math content? They're looking at communication style, verbal style, body language. They're looking at your written work. All of this goes into the hiring process. So I want to make sure that as we go through residency, we continue to work on this. The language the language and the grammar has to improve. Now, you have definitely revised this assignment from the last time that we talked, and I can see improvement, but I'm still going to push you to go more in depth. Your thinking is there. You just have to convey it on paper and then speak to it. Okay. Because sometimes I may not have the option of speaking or of hearing you, but I have to go solely on what's on paper. And you want to make sure it's there and that your meaning and your thoughts are accurately displayed and articulated. Okay. Now, does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions about that?
No, I've noticed that problem too. Is
Okay.
that even when like I submit my work or like look at responses and like I don't have like well, I just think that I can just talk in my words and people like will understand it when I'm supposed to use like more scholarly language. So like I can like go into detail of like what I'm talking about and like to get better at getting my words across.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I've been there. I'm still there as a student myself, and it just takes practice. Now, let me give you a strategy. Let me give you a strategy that helps and can also build confidence. Let's just say, for example, you have to, okay, for question two, it talks about assessments, right? Plan assessments and how you would adapt the assessments to meet okay, to meet specific needs of students. So that's basically differentiation. So what I would, this is a strategy. Make sure you find it, look it up. What is the definition of differentiation? And you write that, okay? And then you insert what you know about your students. So, for example, differentiation means to provide different supports or strategies for various needs of students. So, let's
Mhm.
just say a student has a need because they have an IEP for or 504 for ADHD. So, I'm going to take that one student and say, this is my assessment. To help the student who has ADHD, I'm going to do this. Okay. Embed your writing around the definition of the term that you're trying to convey. That may be a good starting point for you. And the more that you do that, you'll start to see the knowledge will start to gel in your mind, and then the way that you write about it will start to improve, and also the way that you speak about it. Okay, so sometimes it helps just to start with the definition of a term and then go from there. But by all means, please try to, as a support for yourself as you're growing in this area, use Grammarly or any other platform out there that's similar. There's so
Okay.
many out there right now, but Grammarly is always my go-to. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All right. So I went through that exercise of going through those questions individually because I wanted you to hear the questions that I ask you so that you can, as we go into next semester, ask yourself those same types of questions as you're writing your lesson reflection, because this is the information that I need to know in terms of your reflection process and the things that you're taking away from your lesson and how it was executed. Okay. Um, Now, what would you consider? I see your self-reflection and your self-scores here. I want you to identify one area that you feel is an area of reinforcement for yourself, meaning that this is an area that I believe that I am proficient in or approaching proficiency, and I feel pretty confident that I'm doing okay in this area. Which of the 12 indicators would you identify as that area of reinforcement?
Um, okay, so I wouldn't say because I know I have like level threes for engaging student and managing behavior because like they were already like built in the norms because they're in Miss Jackson's class.
Yeah,
So I was able to like grab their attention, but then again it was like the culture of the room already set in place.
yeah.
So I can't really go off on that per se, but I would say um in the residency experience that I've learned at the University High School, I'll say that number 12 would be the best because working with Miss Jackson and be able to take what she gives me and being able to put it into my lesson plans and be able to like adapt it and like try to change and evolve each lesson that I go. I'll say that's like my strongest suit, and also the relationship that I built with the Miss Jackson and the kids.
Okay. Hmm. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get to that rubric so I can make sure. I I can see that based on your explanation there, because you talk a lot about the relationships that you develop with not only Miss Jackson, your mentor teacher, but also your students and the staff there. And I tend to agree with you on that. I want you to be mindful also that professionalism includes like what I just spoke to, your presentation of work,
Hmm.
timeliness of your work, the quality of your work.
Hmm.
Yes, while you may have great relationships, working relationships with your stakeholders, mentor, teacher, students, and staff, I totally agree with that. But at the same time, the professionalism in the quality of work has to improve. Okay. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Is there another area you may identify? Professionalism, okay, I can see that in certain aspects. Is there another area? I see here in your self scores, there are several level twos, and you kind of spoke to engaging students in managing behavior. Is there another area? What about, let's look at indicator 5, where it talks about activities and materials. You said level 3 or 2. So talk to me about that. Why are you um, fluctuating there?
Well, I mostly fluctuated there because like I do give them like I give them questions that like build off of each other, and I'm just like going over like just do you want me to do it just on this lesson or just the lessons in general?
Well, this lesson, this particular lesson, but we also can talk in general. Yeah, give me your thoughts.
Um, I would say like if it was implemented, the booklet, it was going to give them a range of questions that would benefit them. And also I gave them, well, I would have given them the opportunity of choice because we could either talked about word problems of sister linear equations or system of linear inequalities. And it was just going to like improve and show the reflection of what's being taught and what's being um implemented and seeing their strategies and like how they was able to progress from the start of the lesson to the end of the lesson. It would have been great if I would have got there, but I
Okay,
didn't.
okay, okay. Let me ask you this. Let's look at I mean, indicator 3. Excuse me, where it talks about standards and objectives.
Hmm.
And you scored yourself at a level 2 or even a level 1 because you said my lesson did align with my standards and objectives, but was not displayed throughout the whole presentation. Also, there was a lack of evidence of mastery to show what the students understood. Oh, to show that the students understood the material. So let's go to, can you pull that up? Do you have access to your handbook? Can you look at indicator 3?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful and intentional as we are reflecting that we know what the expectations are and that we not assume. And luckily, we have the handbook right here that we can reference. So you said that in your written response, because your lesson did not, I mean, your lesson did align with the standards. Well, you say my standards and objective. They're not necessarily your standards or object standards. They're the Tennessee standards. Okay, so we want to fine tune that writing there. Okay, but you said it was not displayed throughout the whole presentation, and that's your just one of your justifications for a level 2 and level 1 or level 1. So I want you to look at the rubric. Okay, does it state is the expectation that the learning objective or the standards being displayed throughout the entire lesson?
Yes.
Okay, where does it say that?
It said it like in the first bullet point. It was a some learning well, I'm looking at the level two. It says some learning objectives and state content standards are communicated, referenced, discussed, displayed throughout the lesson.
Okay, so some learning objectives and state content standards are communicated. Did you communicate? Did you let the students know what the learning objective was for the day?
Mm-hmm.
Did you reference it throughout the lesson?
Oh,
Did you tell them, like, whatever the learning target was, did you refer to it throughout the lesson?
um, no. I normally just gave like the objective and then work on the material of the objective.
Okay. Was it discussed?
Um,
Like, once you communicated what the learning objective was or the purpose of the lesson, did you discuss it?
mm-mm,
Okay. And you said that it wasn't displayed throughout the lesson.
mm-mm,
Right. So I want you to, okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it is like for example, there's some districts that have a whiteboard protocol, which means that on the board is the standard, on the board is the learning objective, and it's there in a certain spot on the on the whiteboard. So when anybody comes in, they can easily see it. I don't think that's a requirement there for university schools. Is there a protocol for that?
Not that I know of, but I know that Miss Jackson, she normally has the objective on the board.
Oh, it's so that oh, she does have it on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's written there on the board at all times?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Okay, so yeah. So you didn't have it displayed.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And why not? Is it just do you have to well do you have to have it displayed like let me ask this question. During flex, when Miss Jackson's actually teaching flex, is it on the board?
Um, uh, it's mm, it's not over us like objective of flex. She
Okay.
normally just has like this like the objective for like the whole day when she's teaching a
Okay.
lesson. But
Uh-huh.
like for flex, it could be either it depends because like it could be either review or it could be test corrections or like things like that.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I could see having talked through that, then now that makes a bit more sense. I wouldn't say necessarily that it's a level one. I would probably say level two is developing because you do want to, especially if your mentor teacher has the learning objective displayed on the board at all times, you would want to mimic that. And it sounds like that's a protocol that's expected there at University High. Okay. Now, of the areas that you have listed, what would be one area I want you to identify as an area of refinement? Which area do you feel like I definitely need to improve? And then if I improve in this area, it will have a domino effect where other areas will also showing progress or improvement. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to think about it.
I think what I mostly need to oh, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think what mostly I need to focus on is presenting instructional content
Okay.
because a lot of things in a level three really showed like things that I'm like firmly lacking in, like concise information, concise communication and online and high quality criteria. I do have visuals, but I don't really have like analogies and things of that nature. I'm learning modeling and doing my thinking so I can help with the students. But yeah, there's just like a bunch of um things in this indicator in level 3 that like I need more assistant on.
Okay.
Assist.
Okay. So I would agree with you there. I would identify this as an area of refinement. But I want you to also be mindful of this, and that this is applicable across the board with all candidates. So as you read through the descriptors, there may be one or two that may not necessarily apply given the content area that you're teaching. Like, for example, you talked about analogies. You may not have an analogy in mathematics, it's particularly if you're dealing with those complex content and concepts. Like linear inequalities, I can not off the top of my head think of an analogy that you may want to insert. However, other bullet points would definitely apply. So you're not trying to meet every bullet point because it just may not be applicable because you're in high school mathematics. Okay. Um, but for example, that same bullet talks about examples or illustrations, and you're definitely doing that. It's just that you need to improve in the area overall. Does that make sense? So
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
feel like you have to meet every bullet point because sometimes it may not be applicable or possible. Okay. Uh, so we've covered a lot. Let me ask you, I know that this was last Tuesday's lesson. What was the feedback you got from Miss Jackson regarding Thursday's lesson? Because that was the one that she was to evaluate you on. What feedback did you get there? Did you have an opportunity to talk with her about that?
Yes. Um, she was mostly saying that I need to have data so I could be able to learn from what the students' misconceptions are, so you could be able to hone that and be able to teach it in the next lesson.
Mhm.
So I need to do that. And then she also said I believe it was with the pacing. She was saying that that's a skill that a lot of teachers still like don't get yet. So like you can't really move on unless like the students are able to fully understand. So like I know like so basically it was mostly about data really because like you need data to order to like see misconceptions and fix them in the next lesson. So like when in doubt, whenever you're having a lesson, you gotta have data no matter what.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I mostly got from that lesson. And also my my language. I need to fix my language
Okay.
and also build confidence.
Yeah. Bill Cut. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, um, yeah. I want to go back to something that was said earlier when I asked you about an area of um, reinforcement. You mentioned indicator 12, which deals with professionalism, right?
Mm.
One big piece to professionalism that is not necessarily highlighted in the rubric is the word commitment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that it appears that you are committed to doing better and doing well and really improving your craft. And I commend you on that because some of the feedback, especially some of the conversations we've had, have not been always pleasant or rainbows and sunshine. Let me say it that way. Okay. But it seems or appears that you have taken the feedback and you have tried to implement it in order to improve your practice in residency. So I want to take a moment to just commend you on that. And yes, there's areas for growth, and we've identified several, but that's as with everything, that's as with life. We're always, or we should always be looking for opportunities to grow and develop. But we also have an opportunity to decide how we will respond to what may be or may be considered unpleasant situations or feedback. So I want to commend you on your commitment to trying to improve and then making those efforts to do so. Okay, I want to make sure that I say that to you. So I want us to continue, and I want you to continue to have that commitment to growth. So I've given you some things that I want you to consider. We're wrapping up this semester, but as we go into second semester, when things are ramped up a bit and you assume more of the responsibility, take this time as we make the transition and the time off to invest in yourself professionally in terms of what I've recommended in terms of the Grammarly um, app. See if you can go ahead and get that started. And then also making sure I'm thinking that you would know ahead of time what. Let me ask you this before I add that. So, at the semester, are you going to get a new group of students, or is it a year long course for Algebra One?
It's year long.
I thought so. Someone told me that it's going to change at the semester, but I didn't recall that. So you're going to continue on with the same group of students when you come back in January, right?
I should, yes.
Okay. And so you probably can get a preview of the content that's going to be taught, particularly that first part of the semester
Hmm.
to spring break. Go ahead and start looking at the content, making sure that the conceptually you understand. I don't feel like you will have a problem or even a challenge in presenting the procedures, but I want to make sure you have the conceptual understanding to undergird that, because if a student has a question and they ask a question that goes to the conceptual understanding, not necessarily the procedural, you'll be able to respond and respond accurately.
Hmm.
So let's take a moment. Hopefully, you'll have time over the break to do that. Just to wrap up, I'm going to agree with you. I need to identify one area of refinement and one area of reinforcement. And so I haven't like settled on those yet, uh, with the exception of indicator for presenting instructional content would definitely be an area that I would highlight as a place for refinement, reinforcement. What you're doing well, I'm not quite sure. It may be professionalism, but it also may be uh, instructional plans. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm still mulling that over. However, when I submit the scores into Vera, you'll be able to see my comments, and then you'll definitely see there where I landed in terms of your area of reinforcement. Okay, but I'm debating between instructional plans and also professionalism and maybe even activities and materials. I'm just gonna do a deeper dive and look at your video. I did receive the video, so thank you for sharing that. Okay. So going forward, we're going to just continue to work on our communication in terms of professionalism, submitting work on time. If you need an extension, remember I asked that you learn how to advocate for yourself, ask
Hmm.
those questions. I think I haven't had a chance to look in Canvas. Were you able to get that? No, I gave you until Monday to get that artifacts assignment in, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but
What?
okay. So in the midst of like, I should have done the assignment earlier before the last week
Uh-huh.
of school because with the lesson plans and evaluations, it made me forget that it was due on Friday. So I wasn't able to like get student work,
Oh,
but I remember the lesson and I remember was being taught. So I'm trying to grasp everything that I saw and try to put it in the final artifacts.
okay. Now remember, student work is not the only artifact that you can use.
Hmm.
You have your personal observations, right? You have lesson plans, you have what you observed, what you heard from your mentor teacher. So there's other artifacts that you can use besides student work. Now, student work is a viable piece of artifact, it's viable evidence, but if you don't have it, then remember there are other ways that you can use other areas and artifacts that you can use to support your writing. I just want to make sure you knew that.
Okay.
Don't be just like if you don't have student work, don't be discouraged and think that you can't get it done. There's other forms of evidence that you can use.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so that's going to be due today, right? And you're
Hmm.
studying today?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, good, good. Okay. Any questions, anything as we wrap up that you want to share, add, ask?
I would just like to thank you for being a mentor to me and thank you for being patient and understanding with me because how I went about residency, I came in very uh confident and sure that like, oh, I'm just gonna go in and just knock it out of the park. But I see like after my first lesson that it was not the case, that it was still a lot of stuff that I need to learn, still a lot of stuff that I need to plan out. I need to get out of the habit of assuming that I'm going to do great every single time and try to humble myself more and like learn and grow as I can. And it wouldn't be possible if I didn't have you or Miss Jackson.
Oh wow. That was well said. Well said. So like I said, you have it in you. We just gotta get it and harness it and make sure it's translated in your writing. And that was well said. Well said. Well said. So, and I love that you're able to articulate that because it shows depth of reflection, and it's not. I mean, you've done some internal thinking there. That's obvious. So great, great job. So I want you to be encouraged. I do want you to wrap up the semester, making sure that you finalize all of your assignments. If you have questions like you do, please reach out. If you need something to be clarified, please reach out and just watch our timing as we end the semester because sometimes it's and I'm guilty of this. We tend to say, okay, I can do that tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes the next day, the next day. So we want to just go ahead and knock those things off our to-do list while
Hmm.
opportunity. So you're off this week. Enjoy your week, and then when we return next week, that will be the last week of the last few days actually of residency two. Wednesday will be the last day of class. And so I look forward to seeing you then. Have any questions, please reach out. Enjoy your time off this week. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.